Okay, so thank you, Malak, for joining us. Thank you, Ollie,
Thank you.
too. And thank you, Sherry. This is the first meeting after the Christmas break. The first Zoom on Module 4 that you know is about educational and cultural TV and media and information literacy competencies. We have with us today Sherri Hope Calver. She serves as the director of a Center for Media and Information Literacy at Temple University in USA, where she is an associate professor in the Klein College of Media and Communication. And she also directs the certificate in children's media. She used to work for as vice chair of the Global Media and Information Literacy Alliance at the UNESCO, and she's teaching and consulting explores the media industry and media literacy with focus on media for children. So thank you, Sherry, for joining us today and for dedicating us a little bit of your time. And welcome.
Thank you, Albert. I know that I'm not getting to see everyone's faces ultimately, but
Yeah,
I'm happy to have one of my students is actually joining us and one of your students and hopefully other people will be watching as well.
yeah. I'm
So
going to send a reminder on the chat
WhatsApp.
and on the WhatsApp group in case. But in the
since
meantime,
we're
I think we can start with the class.
since we're a small group too, I was going to say, please, if there are questions, Malak, if especially from you, if there are questions, please feel free to raise a hand or put a note in chat or something, and I'll be sure to respond to that. So I'm going to share my screen so I can share this PowerPoint. Okay, everybody seeing that? Just double
Yeah.
checking. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm in Philadelphia right now. It is a little after 12 noon. I don't know what time it is for anybody else who's watching. I know it's later in the afternoon or early evening in Barcelona, but folks will be watching this from all over. And so just wanted to frame where I am in the world right now. This is some of the work that I've done. I'm not going to talk about this page. You could do a Google search or see it on LinkedIn, or I'm sure that the university has shared some information with you. I'll just highlight one or two things that are on here. So Albert mentioned that I direct the Center for Media and Information Literacy at Temple, which does projects and a television show for the university about media literacy. So all different kinds of things relating to media literacy, and especially media for kids. And I also do a podcast for kids. So at the bottom, you see that little orange box says Kids Talk Media is a podcast I've been doing for several years, interviewing kids about their media habits. And it's a child and their best friend. And they get to talk to each other. And I ask them questions and then they share that. So that's accessible to anybody. It should be available to you no matter where you are in the world. And then the report that's on the left says the quality question. I'm actually going to talk about that in my presentation. That's a report that I released a couple months ago. So that we'll come back to. But should you want to talk about any of these other things, I will give you my contact information at the end and happy to talk with anybody that wants to continue. So my goals for the presentation today are threefold: to clarify the meaning and scope of media literacy, to consider the integration of media education and media literacy from kindergarten through higher ed, K-16, and then specifically this quality question that I just mentioned, to think about the importance of creating quality media content for children and how that connects with media literacy. What is media literacy? So there are so many definitions that you'll hear from different people. I wanted to at least start with that so that you had a clear sense of where I come from when I think about what media literacy is. If we were together in a classroom, I would have you, we would talk about this for a few minutes and get your thoughts about it. So you can think about that yourself, how you would define it, how you've been told what you've been told the definition is. The definition that I rely on is the one from the National Association for Media Literacy Education, which is in the US, but is a global group. And it's the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act using all forms of communication. I think even when you read different definitions that people use, it basically is saying this, like this is the main point that we always come back to. It's about critical thinking. So it's about the reasoning and analyzing and decision-making and problem solving and evaluating we do about media. It's just that critical thinking about media. And to me, all of these different forms of media literacy that you hear about, so digital literacy and television literacy, news literacy, to me, all of those are within that media literacy framework. I do want to pause and say, just to clarify the definition, the difference between media literacy and media and information literacy. So in the United States, the term you're most likely to hear is media literacy. That is the term that folks in the US use most of the time. Globally, you're much more likely to hear media and information literacy. Now, the information part is the library usually side, right? The information library side of it. In the United States, those two groups are very separated. In other parts of the world, they're much more threaded together. The reason that the center that I run at Temple is called Center for Media and Information Literacy is because I do global work, and we want to acknowledge that. But I don't want you to get hung up with any of these definitions. Everybody is saying the same thing. They're all the same. They're all talking about these. I'm going to go back for a second. They're all talking about those skills: access, analyze, evaluate, create, and then act. In one form or another, those are the themes that you'll see. And these are some of the topics that media literacy educators consider part of media literacy, or MIL. So this is from namely, the National Association for Media Literacy Education I talked about before, namely does a state of media literacy. This is a list from 2019. But then more recently, they did the report again, and new topics were added. New topics came up from the educators. They're talking about artificial intelligence, online privacy, virtual reality, augmented reality. I share that with you to just reflect the fact that, first of all of this is media literacy. All of it is within that MIL framework, and that the framework of MIL is recognizing the shifts that happen in how people use media. So we don't need a new term when we get new media. When artificial intelligence comes along and people start using ChatGPT, we don't need to change the name of media literacy. It's part of media literacy. It's still part of it. So no matter what those pieces are, I always go back to these 5 key questions. These are questions that were developed by the Center for Media Literacy, which is in Los Angeles, decades ago. And even though I've added to these questions, I think they're a good touchstone because they're easy to remember, and they are at the core of all of these MIL conversations. The first one is, who created the message, right? Who's the author and who created the message? In this particular image, particular slide, that top image on the left is an AI generated image. Then we have one from a popular kids show. And then an image from the New York Times, and then an Echo, an Amazon Echo. So one of the personal digital assistants that you can just talk to. But there's content coming from all of them. Who is the person that made decisions about that content? Who created it? Second is about purpose. What's the purpose of the image? I think a purpose of almost every media image in one way or another is about making money. Right? We should never lose sight of that the people that are creating these messages want to make money. That is their core purpose, but they may have other reasons also. This is a picture of Bad Bunny and a video of his. What's his purpose? Like, he wants to sell music, but he also wants people to be entertained and have a good time and have songs that they like and can sing to. And the movie, the Barbie movie that was out a couple of years ago, the purpose of that, right, was entertainment and having people maybe think about gender issues in a different way, but they're also looking to make money. What's the format? So what creative techniques are used to attract my attention? Media has an audience, right? The whole point of it is communication. So there are techniques that are used to make sure that people will look at it. That character from McDonald's, Ronald McDonald, was created so that people would think about McDonald's, so that they would go to a McDonald's, so they would feel engaged with McDonald's. The picture at the bottom is from a commercial for Skittles. I'm not sure, depending where you are in the world, you may or may not have ever seen this commercial, but in it, so Skittles are a candy, little round candies, sugar candies, and it's about him having Skittles pox. So as if he has like a disease where he's got Skittles all over his body. And the girl that's in this commercial, walks up to him and picks one off of his face and eats it. And while she's talking, she's picking these things off his face. So what creative techniques are used to attract my attention? That was a technique that somebody did intentionally. How might those different people understand the message differently? Media literate people understand that I bring who I am to how I interpret media, as does everyone else. So an older woman, the elderly woman in the picture there, who's looking at the same Skittles commercial, and I am looking at it, or this young woman or this young boy, all of us are going to have a different reaction to the commercial. Different people will understand the message differently, recognizing just because I feel this way doesn't mean everybody feels this way. And finally is about culture. What values and points of view are represented or omitted? So this is really noticing what's not there, noticing the cultural messages that they're communicating. So in the picture at the top, it's a screen grab from an Instagrammer, a YouTuber who's talking about makeup. Value messages embedded in that are you should be wearing makeup. When you wear makeup, your face should look like my face, her face, not my face. She's talking about this foundation that's only $9.99. So she's assuming that there's something that you're willing to spend on makeup in a certain amount. All of those are value messages about the way we should look. The bottom one is a billboard for Coca-Cola, but Santa Claus is on there. So that's a message, a value message from Coca-Cola that Santa enjoys Coca-Cola. But guess what? Not everybody believes in, well, we know that Santa's not real, but right, Santa Claus is connected to Christianity. If you are a person who's not Christian and you see that billboard, that sends a very different message to you than a person who is Christian who looks at the billboard, right? Somebody who's Christian, people, when I show them that billboard, if they celebrate Christmas, they think it's a very inclusive billboard, right? It's Santa and it's fun and it's Christmas and he's drinking Coke and he's happy. And the line under Coca-Cola says open happiness. But if you are someone who does not celebrate Christmas, you don't believe in Christianity, that's not your religion, you might feel like this entire billboard is exclusionary. It's keeping you out. And that was its intent. It meant to keep you out. So these value messages are embedded in the content that we look at. So being able to fluidly know those 5 key questions, I think is a really important baseline media literacy skill. And we can ask those 5 key questions about any kind of media that we look at. We can think about it with an ad like this. This was an ad for Valentine's Day, for chocolates that you would buy on Valentine's Day. I'm not sure how big this might be in your country, but in the United States, Valentine's Day is huge. And there's an expectation that you will purchase chocolates for your loved one. So we can ask the question, right? Who was the author of this picture? What kinds of special, what are the ways that they set up the photograph to attract my attention? How might different people understand this picture differently? Like if you were somebody on a diet and you saw this picture, you'd feel differently than someone who is very thin and never worries about whether they're eating chocolate. Or if you are allergic to chocolate, right? I mean, there's all sorts of different interpretations you might bring. There's a value message in here that if it's Valentine's Day, you should be buying someone chocolate, right? So we can ask that question about any content. About a TikToker, same thing. Who's the author? What is this person? Just the expression on that person's face is a technique they are using to attract our attention. Who's the audience that's going to think that's funny? What is the message about the way he's posing, what he's saying? In this particular post, he's mentioning Squid Game, which was a very, very popular series on Netflix. So there's an assumption that you've seen that. So all of these things are embedded with value messages. There are other questions that we could ask as well. And I'm actually going to go straight to the bottom question. Is this media improving my well-being? This is a question that has really come to the forefront in media literacy circles since COVID, right? Really since COVID. When we talk to young people, and I'm going to say young people like 6, 7, 8 years old about media, they'll often tell stories about media upsetting them. Something they saw scared them. Something they saw made them fearful, made them upset, made them cry, or maybe happy emotions as well. But the idea that we should be thinking about our emotions and how we consume media, and if the media is not making us feel good, that we might back away from it we are actually not, we have not been teaching that in media literacy for many years, but now we are. And so I wanted to add some of those questions for you to think about. Right? Media contain value messages. So I want to just quickly go through a couple of images that I have here. So when we watch television, when we listen to podcasts, when we watch movies or we listen to music, all media contains value messages. So just as a research exercise, I wanted to look at what value messages kids are learning about media when they consume media, right? So what are people learning? What are kids learning about media? We are all learning things about media. So if you're watching a TikToker there and it's a young person who doesn't have a lot of experience, there's a value message to that you should maybe have it. You should be uploading content on TikTok, right? Have you ever found yourself in an environment where something fun was happening and you thought, oh, I really should take a picture of this and post it to Instagram. I really should take a video of this and upload it to YouTube. You feel that because there's a value in our society about sharing your media content, and there's a push to that. So how do we see that in kids' media? So I looked at these TV shows and screened multiple episodes. Here are some, just a small number of some of the examples that I found. So this was a TV show that's on Disney Plus. This is a scene, just I'm showing you screen grabs of moments in the episode. So you can see she's on a mobile device, and in that scene, she's talking about being hooked on a mobile game. This is a snapshot from Raven's home, and here's a young boy, right, taking a picture of the family. Bizaardvark was a series where the entire series was about the characters being in a YouTube style makerspace. So they created songs, they were uploading videos, they talked about algorithms and how to get their audience to watch them. That was the whole show. This is one where we can, in the TV show, she's on a TV show and we can see the screen in that. So we saw the camera person in that. In this show called Raising Dion, he talks about having a YouTube channel. These two are talking about being gaming buddies. Here's a cartoon for the boy who's about 7, and he's using a mobile phone at the dinner table. There's another girl who's doing some multitasking with her phone and her laptop. This is another cartoon called The Loud House. It's a group of 8 siblings in this show. In this particular scene, all of the sisters, these are all sisters, and they all have mobile phones. And even these bears, even in this show about these cute bears, and it's a preschool show, they're playing a video game and arguing about who gets to have the controller. And you can sort of see the bear on the right is also holding a device in his hand as well. And this is from Sesame Street, where Oscar the Grouch came out of his trash can and talked about cell phone addiction. And it's a preschool show, right? So kids are getting lots of messages about media use. Some of the things, I'm just going to quickly go through some of these bullets, right? That it's fun to use media. You should be on social media. So if you're watching a television show, if you're a 5-year-old and you're watching a TV show and the characters on your TV show are talking about being on YouTube, you think you should be on YouTube, right? So the idea that you should have your own YouTube channel, being famous has perks, has benefits. This is how we take selfie pictures, right? You can get addicted to social media. All of these messages and many, many more are embedded in the value messages in media. So thinking about why it's so important to be media literate. If you're not familiar with the resources from Namely, I would strongly suggest that you visit, it's Namely, NAMLE.net. And there are many resources available, but they're updated. There's a core principles of media literacy education that could be really helpful for the work that you're doing. So I want to give you a few examples of how people are integrating media education in K-16 spaces, because people are doing all sorts of different things. So before we even think about what that curriculum should be, we need to consider the cognitive development. So where is that child or that older person, that adult, in their understanding of media, in their understanding of being able to be self-reflective? Obviously, like a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old is not really capable of that, but this man who's probably over 70 is probably capable of that, right? So cognitive development. What kind of curriculum do you need? Do you need something that is going to be a one-off module or a class for an entire semester? You can do things in preschool that don't use any technology at all. I've done lots of training with preschool teachers where we teach about media literacy. You can see somebody like created a box with a TV, put their head in the television, made a fake mobile phone, lots of things to do without technology. Or you can have a guest speaker. I went to talk to a group in primary school. Middle schools often will do a news program because they're introducing concepts of usually news and information around middle school age, right? Between like ages 11 to 13 or 14. So this is one initiative in New York City. In high school, they often get into news as well, more complicated things about news, but also around filmmaking and how do we take the ideas that we have, creative ideas, and say something with those ideas through filmmaking. I'm teaching a course at the university level that's called Media in a Hypermediated World. So that's the title for a media literacy course that goes for the entire semester. We talk about regulations, advertising, audience development, content. We talk about artificial intelligence, privacy and surveillance, like the whole realm, all those issues that I mentioned earlier in the slides. We talk about all of those issues. We always want to make sure that in those opportunities, whether it's with preschoolers or with students